Hi everybody, welcome to our 4 o'clock live. I am here with Blaine. Blaine, hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited to be on here with you today.
I'm glad you're here. It's a great day. It's Friday, it's almost the weekend. So excited. I always love the weekends.
I love them too.
Yeah, we were just talking about how in our profession, because Blaine works in treatment as well, that a lot of times we're just like so on all day long and dealing with people and being on our A game that a lot of times by the end of the day we like to just go home and decompress for an hour or two, part of self-care. So big thing for me on the weekends is just like chilling out, taking that time for myself, realizing that I don't always have to be busy doing something. I don't know if you're like that too, but especially when I got into recovery, I really had to be mindful of that because I felt like if I wasn't doing something, then I was being lazy and that I wasn't being proactive, you know, and productive. And I came to realize that sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves is just be at home and be chilling out or just like taking that time, whatever it may be, and allowing ourselves to just be peaceful and pamper ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so for you, with self-care and with balancing work and your life in sobriety, what do you do for self-care?
So right now, I've been getting better about it, mostly. Something I've been really starting to do is I listen to audiobooks. Okay. You know, I'll just, turn the lights down low in my bedroom, put in my ear pods, and listen to an audiobook. And mind you, it's just been one so far. Okay. However, this is a really new one for me. I'm really stretching here with the audiobooks because before it was, I wasn't too healthy with it. I was playing a lot of video games, endlessly scrolling, and then there would be like points
the scrolling.
Just where I'm like, I'm not even reading this. I'm just flicking and seeing what happens.
Yeah, it's such a habit.
It really is.
That becomes an addiction all in itself. Is that gotta scroll, gotta do this, gotta look. Yeah, and just being able to pause and not do that. So what are you reading right now?
All right, so.
Be honest.
All right. You really want me to be honest?
Yeah, you just no curse words.
There's no curse words.
Okay.
48 laws of power. Okay. So it goes.
No, that's cool.
It is cool. It's what it's really about is it goes back in history and it talks about men, women, princes, king, queens, you name it, how they got into power, how they stayed in power, and when they finally lost power, because power comes and goes, what they could have done to keep it. So
I like that.
Mind you, it's probably not the best reading, like laying down at night, but it keeps me interested, and that's, when it comes to stuff like that, I have to stay engaged and I have to stay interested.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I might have to check that out. I have a really short attention span.
Really?
And usually when I'm reading, I have to read a book, and I'm going to call myself out here, and I have to read out loud.
Really?
And I can usually only read for about 15 minutes because I won't retain it. And it's interesting because I found when I got sober, for a while I thought there was something wrong with me with my memory. So if you're struggling, you're in early recovery and you don't remembering things, it's normal. And I remember I would read out of the big book, and I'd have my sponsor, she'd come to the treatment center I was at once a week, and we'd read out of the big book. And I would tell her, I'm not remembering anything we're reading. I wouldn't remember any of it. And she's like, Jenny, sometimes you just need to break it down, like literally word by word, and do it out loud. And so that's what I started to do. I would read the book, and then it got to the point where I could do a paragraph, and then I'd highlight it, the little words that stuck out. And that's how I started to remember things again, because Xanax, I was so foggy in my head. So yeah, I have a hard time reading, but I might have to check that out. Okay, so anyways, the reason why we're here today is a big thing we wanted to talk about was getting into solution in recovery. And I know you're in recovery. Blaine is a really cool, you're very organic and authentic, I find. The first time I met him, it was just this natural conversation, and I just love that about you. And I think that's really cool that you're able to just be who you are, and you wear your recovery like a badge. And it's,
thank you.
Yeah, it's a great quality. So I think there'd be people watching today that, are wondering how to get into solution. You know, how do they do that as a young male, getting sober? What does that look like? So if you could take us back, if you don't mind, and kind of go into your journey from addiction to recovery, and tell us your story a little bit.
So, you know, like I like to start out as like, there's nothing like really like crazy or, you know, very special about my journey. You know, I'm just a kid that grew up in North Carolina, and you know, I think we was talking about it. You know, I was able to. My mom actually sent me a picture of my report card when I was in 9th grade, and it showed, you know, the first semester compared to the spring semester, and you know, and it showed when I was not on drugs, and then the next semester was when I discovered drugs. And just to give you a little bit of backstory on the guy in the first semester, right? I was this kid that, you know, I made straight A's. I was on the wrestling team. I was showing up to school. I don't think I missed one day.
Wow.
And you know what? I don't want to use the word all-American, but I was just your normal all-American kid having a good time. And from there, you know, it's really weird to talk about what got me involved in drugs, what got me interested in them. And I just want to say, like, it probably just had to been the drug itself, because there wasn't really anything interesting with me, with the people that I was using with at first. You know, because I had an older brother and an older sister who both suffer from the disease of addiction or alcoholism. And I remember always being like, I'm not going to be like them. I'm not going to be like them. However, it was one day after school, I got invited to go, you know, hit the bong with the cool kids. And the trumpet went off, you know. I took that bong hit, and from there, you know, everything was all right, you know.
Can I ask you this real quick before we move on from this? Because I think this is really key and important. So you're this all-American guy, right?
All-American.
You got straight A's. You're on the wrestling team, all these things. What made you decide to go and do that? What was that conversation you had with yourself where you're going, you know what, I'm going to go do this?
That's a really good question. I think, I remember it was January, wrestling season was freshly over. Probably February, actually. It doesn't matter, but wrestling season was over, and I had a free day off, and I was bored.
You were bored?
I was bored, and I'll go ahead and say it. I don't think I mentioned this. I was predisposed to racing thoughts, anxiety, all that stuff that later comes into play down the road when I'm trying to get sober, what I'm dealing with when I'm trying to get sober. And I always felt like I had to be doing something. I always felt like I had to be feeling something inside me, or else I just didn't feel all right. You know, for me as a kid, you know, the worst punishment for me was boredom. You know, and that definitely followed me into my later years. You know?
I think that's the case for a lot of people. So you had a day off, you were bored, and it was just one of those moments that obviously you couldn't foresee where it was going to take you. So in the moment you're going, okay, cool, I'm going to go do this. And then it was the aha of, this is what I've been missing.
Right.
And so then what happened after that?
I remember taking that bong hit, hanging out with the friends, and we laughed, we giggled, we ate some frozen pizza. And I was like, I think I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life. And I made
just like that.
Just like that.
You made that decision.
I think I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life. And you know what? They did not. My friends did not have that same feeling. So I found myself going and finding a drug dealer on my own and smoking weed by myself. All right. Very early on, I went straight into using by myself. Right. And then what followed was just like a simple progression, right? I'm going to try Xanax. I'm going to try Oxycontin. And then at some point, Oxycontin got too expensive. So what do you do? You go out and you find heroin, you know? And it'd start with, you know, I'd always say I'm not going to do oxys. All right, well, I'm never going to do heroin. All right, well, I'm never going to shoot up heroin. I'll just sniff it because it's powder on the East Coast. and then
right, these excuses and justifications, right. and just our mind is trying to kill us as an alcoholic, and what it's trying to convince us to do. And I know a lot of people don't believe that weed is a gateway drug. Some people do and some people don't. Everyone has their own opinion. I'm not trying to say one way or another. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, but what I can say is that when you start to put something into your body that alters how you feel, then of course it's going to make you want to feel those things more and more. So that could be with food, that could be with sugar, that could be with fitness, that could be whatever it is in life, but that's just like the natural progression. So for you, you got that feeling and then you just couldn't get enough, right? And you kept going up and up. And we hear it so often, which is so deadly for these youngsters, is that you're doing oxy and it's too expensive. So then you turn to that. And now with fentanyl and everything, it's just terrifying. We can talk about that more after. But okay, so you progressed up to heroin and kept getting worse and worse than that. Did your family know? Did your siblings know?
So mind you, this is the height of 2008.
Okay.
2008 to 2010, the stock market just crashed. My parents divorced.
Okay.
So it's my brother, he's out of control. Mind you, he's sober now. Shout out to Brad.
Right on, Brad.
But a lot of funky stuff was going on. My dad, not ever having to really deal with substance abuse. None of his brothers and sisters were alcoholics or addicts. His parents were not alcoholics or addicts. He did not know what to do, He really just did not know what to do. And mind you, I had an awesome childhood. My mom and dad, great people, still great people. I talk to them both daily, but they did not know what to do with us. And especially in my hometown, rural North Carolina, was not equipped to deal with, what was going on as far as, the mass spread of Oxycontin at that time. And basically from there, he didn't want to kick us out. He didn't want us to be homeless, but at the same time, he just did not know what to do. So he just kept going to work. He just kept showing up regardless. My mom did the same thing. She just kept showing up regardless regardless of how we behaved. And and I don't know how they could have handled it any different.
That's what I was going to ask you next. If now looking back, as someone in recovery that has the education and the experience, would you have suggested anything different? Would you suggest anything different for a parent watching this today, and then their kids are going through this and they don't know, they don't have the experience? Looking back now, what would you suggest to a parent that is experiencing this? What would be some of the solutions?
I would tell them to reach out for professional help, and then on top of that, they need to reach out to Al-Anon.
Yes.
Go to Al-Anon.
Can you explain what Al-Anon is if someone's watching?
So Al-Anon is for for family members of those afflicted by addiction or alcohol, and it basically teaches you how to deal with people like me and you.
Okay.
And it teaches you how to deal with other people, right? And with that, you're going to meet other people that's been through the same thing as you, the afflicted family member, and they're going to be able to give you advice on where to go next.
Okay.
And that's probably going to mean way more than coming from like a doctor or a therapist who hasn't been through it.
Right, and it's just like for us when we go to a meeting and we have that relatability and people understand what we're going through. It's to be able to be part of Al-Anon or a support group like that, where you can have the relatability and the understanding, know you're not alone, and be able to talk openly. I think it's really important. So friends and loved ones, definitely you would suggest Al-Anon. When you say professional help, you mean go see a therapist, a doctor, or what would you suggest?
Well, I'd suggest, of course, I think, I'm going to be personal about this, I think everybody needs to see a therapist. I see a therapist.
So do I.
So I'm going to suggest that to my family because self-care, right? They need to take care of themselves. They need to have that special person that they can talk to and bounce things off of. And, I don't really understand like the full like therapeutic process. However, I can tell you that having one in my life has been a game changer, especially with like, going through things in work, going through things in my personal life. And it really keeps me even keeled and ready to go.
I agree. I think therapy is amazing. I don't think there should be any stigma around that you go talk to somebody. If nothing more, just for that week, of just being able to decompress and just let it all out and get some non-biased feedback, is that in itself is well worth it, you know? So I completely agree with you. Okay, so they went to work, they kept doing what they were doing, you guys kept doing what you were doing. And so what was the tipping point? Like what was the chain of events that you got sober?
So there was a lot of times that I thought, you know, it should have been my bottom, you know. There's been, you know, suicide attempts at my friends' houses, right?
So with a suicide attempt, let's go back to your first one, if you don't mind talking about this.
Yeah.
What was the process of that? Like what happened and why did you want to kill yourself? How were you feeling that you were in that state that you wanted to do that? And what did you do?
So I was only given, being like given their narrative of what happened.
Because you were out of it.
Yeah, it was right when I started getting into Xanax.
Okay.
I was a junior in high school. I think it doesn't matter. I ate a bunch of Xanax.
A lot, yeah.
And then my last memory is, ever heard of Aristocrat? Really dirty vodka. Last thing I remember is I tilted up a half gallon, and then next thing I know, I wake up, I'm at my other buddy's house, and I'm like, who gave me a bath? And then I realized there was just gouges and cuts all up and down my body. And mind you, at this time, they didn't know who to call. They should have called probably a CAT team or a PERT team. But evidently, I got a hold of like a screwdriver or something and tried going to myself with it. And which is brutal. I can't tell you what was going exactly through my mind at that time, other than I was, Blaine was not at the will of the body at that point, right? And you know what? As you know, the good alcoholic I am, it was, all right, well, let's find some more drugs and let's just keep going so I can keep going to school.
Right, and that just shows how sick you were, you know, in your addiction, that here you are taking all this Xanax, drank all this alcohol, have literally tried to gouge yourself to death, and you just going to keep going. You know, I did the same thing. I had so many times where that should have been my bottom.
Yeah.
You know, like where it's like, come on, this is the time. This is 5150. I should be dead. I did this to this person, whatever it was. Yet we keep doing this to ourselves. Like the insanity of it.
How can I make everything normal after something completely abnormal just happened?
Right. So what was normal for you when you went forward after that?
Bong rips and showing up halfway to school. That was it. That was it. And you know what? I did a really good job at it for my entire 3.5 years when I was using and going to school. I graduated with a whopping 1.6 GPA.
Okay.
That's impressive.
That's that's tough to do.
usually when I tell people about that, they're like, "How did you do that?"
Yeah, I'm kind of speechless on that one.
Yeah.
We'll just leave that one alone.
Yeah, we'll leave that alone.
So you graduated with that, and then when did you go to treatment? Like how did that happen?
So, you know, once I graduated, it was I had a lot more free time with me. And at this time, if you didn't know that, I didn't really like this guy. I really did not like the guy in the mirror.
Why didn't you like the guy in the mirror? What was it underneath the drugs and alcohol? What was it that you didn't like, that you were so tormented by?
That's a tough question. In some certain aspect, I don't think it was much as it was like I was upset with me. Like a lot of it, I had the finger pointed at God, right? As far as, I grew up Southern Baptist. I really didn't understand whatever this version of God that I was given at a young age. And, my outlook on life was bleak, looking at, my perception of my parents, right? Looking at the perception of like what a good life looked like. I go to school for 4 years, college, and then I just get this normal, mediocre life is the way I perceived it. I get the house, a car, and I honestly, I did not see any fun in that. And I did not like the cards given to me at that time. You know, I wanted to be, you know, of course I wanted to be taller, I wanted to be more better looking. I wish I'd have grown up, you know, richer, or I wish I'd been more athletic, you know, all these different things that I felt like that I deserved that I did not get, and it was, you know, directly correlated with this God I had in my life.
So I hear confusion with that,
absolutely.
Not understanding, creating frustration, entitlement in a sense that you thought that you should have these things, resentment.
A whole book.
Yeah, and this negative self-talk to top it off. That's a deadly combination for sure. Okay, so you didn't like the person you were looking at, and then what happened?
And then, you know, I got introduced to IV heroin. You know, and
how did that happen?
So, I had some friends, and they first started getting into it. You know, and like, I'm eating Percocets, I'm doing Roxy's on a regular basis, and you know, eventually I got the physical addiction to that, right? And then I had some friends that were getting heroin, and they was getting these little white rocks of, you know, powdered heroin. And I remember, you know, I would be like, I'd call them up and see if they could get any pills. They couldn't, and then they'd be like, hey, you want to do heroin? And I think it was like 3 times after me calling and them saying that, I was like, hey, what's going on with that? And they was like, well, for $20, this is going to get you the same high that $60 worth of pills will get you. And I'm a man that loves a bargain. Right. I was sold.
You were hooked.
I was sold at that point, and they was like, and you can snort it. And at that point, what's the difference between snorting powdered heroin and, you know, a powdered pharmaceutical grade opiate?
Right. And okay, and so that started happening. And when you were doing all of this, how were you getting the money to support your drug habit?
Dude, I was bumming off my dad mostly. He didn't know what to do. And then any little scheme or hustle that I could come up with, right? And then like occasionally I'd get a job. I've had a lot of these jobs where I'd go to like the temp agency or something, and I would end up getting a job for like a week or 2, getting paid, and then just taking off. And that was just a cycle.
Just the cycle.
Just a vicious cycle.
And just manipulating people. Whatever you could do, and man, just a horrible
gift card hustle.
Horrible lifestyle. Just chasing that all the time. So, okay, let's move forward. So you end up going to treatment. So what happened where you went to treatment at the time where you really got sober and stayed sober?
So when I really got sober, right, that was a pretty cool point. So I remember, my brother and my sister both, you know, they're both in addiction. My sister ended up coming out to California and making a friend out here. And at the time, I was you know, getting loaded. I was like driving a forklift for this furniture place in North Carolina. And I was pretty miserable. And I was surviving on fronts from the dealer at this point, you know, and it was to the point that my whole next paycheck was going straight to the dealer, and I wouldn't have anything. Yeah. And I had a bright idea, and I'm going to be honest with you, I went to treatment for all the wrong reasons. You know, I said I can call my sister, and I can see if I can get out to California, go to rehab for 30 days, get some relaxation and some meditation, and then I can just come back and do it again. You know, and I can get like a nice little medical detox. I can escape all the troubles that I have right now. And then when I'm ready, I can just pick it right back up and go again. And what happened was the complete opposite. My sister gets me hooked up with an individual out here who brought me out, got me in a medical detox, and I thought I was going to do like meditation, some serious therapy to work on some issues. And this place I went to had the, you know, they advocated for me on my behalf, which what I mean is like, they taught my parents how to like set boundaries, and then they told my parents, they was like, hey, you know, 30 days usually doesn't work. Why don't we do 90? And I'm like, what? You know, I call my dad and he's like, hey, you're doing 90 days of treatment. Actually, I want you to go to sober living afterwards and you can pay for your plane ticket back home. And I'm like, whoa, guys, what's going on here? And in between all that, they're making me go to these AA meetings. And I would like to say I went in like willingly, and I was like, yeah, I want to get better. But that wasn't the case. I went in there, I listened to these people talk about all these depressing things, you know, as how they hit their bottom, and then they talked about God and their version of, you know, their higher power, and that really turned me off to it. However, I'll never forget, I was sitting in there, and I was listening to a guy right around my age speak about alcoholism, and he was talking about the way he used to drink, all the failures and disappointments of his past. And I remember relating to it, and then he ended it saying something like, well, if you can relate to that and you know, you drink like I did, I got good news for you. Either one of three things will happen. You'll either, you know, work the 12 steps and live, you know, a decent life, or you'll end up in jail, in an institution, or dead. And I was like, all right, that does not look good for me, because I don't want to work the 12 steps. So those are my other two options. So, you know, maybe, just maybe, you know, whatever's working for this guy in his life can work in my life. And I started talking to that guy. I got the conversation rolling, like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And from there, I started calling this guy, and he told me he was my sponsor. And I was like, sure, okay. And I started doing what he was telling me to do. You know, I started waking up and praying to this God I didn't believe in. And you know, I really didn't. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because this is a question that comes up a lot with clients, is they have a really hard time praying to a God they don't believe in, right? So how were you able to do that? So when you say that you were praying to a God you didn't believe in, what would you actually do? And I know you were in a state of surrender, so you were taking the suggestion and doing it, but physically, emotionally, what would you do to pray to that God?
So for me, I started with something just as simple, like something I couldn't deny, right? I would go with the spirit of the universe, right? Because at the time, you know, when I showed up to treatment, I had like this long hair, and I had this like hippie, you know, image that I had to keep up with. So if somebody asked, I was like, I pray to the spirit of the universe, you know, and I felt really good about that. And, you know, I found something that I could really like get behind, whether that's, you know, the ocean, you know, or, you know, one of my other ones I really liked was, because I'd switch it up, I didn't just stick with one, was I believe that my sponsor believes. That's super simple.
I believe that my sponsor believes.
Yeah, I believe.
I love that. I love that. I've never heard that before. That is great. That is just turning it completely over. I believe that my sponsor believes. Okay.
Yeah, because something must be working in his life, you know, for him to sustain from drug and alcohol use and to be living like a half decent life. So if it's working for him, maybe, just maybe, it can work for me. And from there, you know, off of that, just simple, you know, like auctioneer prayer of, you know, hey God, it's Blaine, or hey, you know, my sponsor's God that I don't believe in, this is Blaine. Something sprouted from that, you know, and I started working those steps, and I started looking at, you know, this guy I didn't like, and what I didn't like about him, and what I could start doing, you know, to change that, you know. And it was interesting, you know, like I ran out of excuses. So like I remember like early on, like I remember saying to my sponsor, you know, I have low self-esteem, and he would counter back with, well, what have you done that's esteemable here lately? And I didn't have an answer for that, you know, like little stuff like that where, you know, I couldn't, you know, when I went to this guy or went to this group, you know, if I had a complaint, an issue, or, you know, felt sorry about something, they would ask me, how am I taking action and accountability?
Right, getting into that solution, which is so important. Exactly, taking our own inventory, figuring out what we can do differently, you know, getting into solution. For you, how did you build your self-esteem back up? What did that look like?
So for me, it was as simple as, you know, I had this KDAC counselor there who would, he would run a whole group on actually that, building self-esteem, doing esteemable acts. And the first time I actually, made like an effort to rebuild that self-esteem was when he said, well, what can you do here today in this treatment center to rebuild your self-esteem or do an esteemable act? And I'm like, nothing. You can't do anything here. We're stuck in this house 24/7. And he was like, why don't you make breakfast for everyone? And I'm like, whoa. And that's like, for me, that's something I'm good at. I'm a breakfast king. All right, I can make omelets, eggs, bacon, everything, pancakes. So the next morning I woke up really early and I made pancakes and eggs for everybody. And I'd do that at least like 2 to 3 times a week while I was in residential treatment. And I felt really good at the end of that.
I think that's so important to say that because it's so true. And I believe that wholeheartedly, that when we're doing things for others, when we're being of service, it pays us back in so many ways. And I've had, lots of people, because I used to do groups, be a group facilitator, and someone would come and say, oh, Jenny, I know all these groups. I've been to treatment 50 times. I could lead this whole group. I know all the material. And I would say, okay, well, maybe instead of that mentality, why not think about one way you can help someone else in the group, or something you could say, and it's just so important to do that. So you started being of service, and how did you feel that fulfillment start to blossom inside you, that self-esteem? What did that feel like?
So, what it felt like was, all right, one of the best moments ever in my recovery, and I'm just gonna be honest, was going into my home group at the time, and it's like a bunch of like older men, and I felt like a little boy when I first, in my addiction, and while getting sober. And I remember the first time when it was different, when I walked in and I started like walking up to like other grown men, shaking their hand, looking them in the eye, and asking them about their day, and like being like I didn't feel like the odd guy out. I felt like I belonged there. You connected. I connected.
Yeah, and you had that genuine moment where you could have that conversation and just be you and ask them how they're, it's those simple acts, paying it forward, asking someone how their day is, listening. I think 90% of this is listening. We can be so quick to judge, react, get defensive, but to take the time to just sit and listen to someone else, whatever they want to tell you, and not judge it, I think that really creates those bonds, especially in AA and all those type of support groups. So yeah, okay. So now you sponsor other people, right? Other men. How many sponsees do you have right now?
I got one.
You got one, okay.
And that's pretty good for COVID. I'm just gonna be honest. That's pretty good.
What's your max?
I've had 3 or 4 at once.
Okay.
Okay,
3 or 4 at once. And so for you, what have you learned the most about yourself being a sponsor?
So what usually happens is they'll bring something up that I did not notice or I forgot about myself. They'll bring up like a defect of character or something, and I'm like, oh, I got some of that going on in my life. I need to contact my sponsor and start working on that. Okay,
so they bring that up. I could see that happening, definitely. I feel like I have people in my life that remind me of those things, and sometimes we need that reminder. So you've been sober for a while now, you sponsor other people. Your day-to-day life, your solution, what works for you, what is it that keeps you going in sobriety? What keeps that drive? What makes you wake up happy, get up, suit up, and just be the happy guy that you are? Because you present, and I don't know what you're like, normally, but from my experience with you, you seem very calm and humble and appreciative and content. So how does that work? What do you do to make sure that you have those qualities?
So, when I start my morning, I'm gonna be honest, I like to sleep in. I know a lot of people that wake up, 5 o'clock in the morning. Me. Oh, really?
I'm crazy, yeah.
I wake up and usually about 7:30 in the morning.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Weekends, probably a little bit later.
Okay.
But I actually, I have it in my phone, 8 a.m. I have an alarm that tells me to pray.
Oh, wow.
Because it,
okay.
given to my own devices, I won't remember. 4.5 years sober, stuff like that just fly out of my memory. Pray and meditate. And I pray, and I try to get consistent with my meditation. I'm not the best with it. However, I try to do it as much as often, either a minute, 5 minutes. I've never, broke the 10-minute mark. And then something I do a lot, actually, I call 5 guys a day.
Really?
Driving.
That's impressive.
I call 5 guys.
Okay.
And
these are your friends? Are they people that are names at the meetings that you get their numbers, or who are the 5 guys? Different guys?
Different guys, and it's usually different days of the week, and it's usually from my home group, or somebody that'll come up and ask me for my number, or some guy with less time, more time. I try to keep that pretty even, and then most days I talk to my sponsor. So
I love that. It feels very old school, but I love old school stuff because everyone's just so used to just texting now and on Messenger or social media. So to be able to say that you call 5 guys on the phone every day. I
consistently do that.
Consistently, and that you get up, you set an alarm at 8 a.m., you pray. And what else do you do to stay in solution? You meditate to 10 minutes, right? If you can get there.
If I can get there.
That is a lot in itself. Yeah, I know.
I've never been good at that.
I find that doing meditation in motion works best for me.
Really?
Like I went running this morning down in Corona Del Mar, and I was right next to the ocean and listening to the waves, and I'm in my thoughts. And to me, I feel that is meditation. But I have a hard time just sitting and trying to just meditate. So yeah, I hear you on that.
I can't remember what it's called. I don't have it on that phone, but I have, there's a meditation app, and I cannot remember what it's called. It's totally going through my mind, but it has these bells, right? And it goes off every minute to 30 seconds, to 30 seconds. And what the bells do is it reminds you that you're meditating. Oh,
cool. So it brings you back when you're down a rabbit hole thinking of what you ate for lunch.
Yeah, something, what am I going to do today? Who am I going to call later? What am I going to do for my job today? What it does is it reminds you, hey, you're taking time for yourself and you're sitting in this moment. And, I'm a big proponent of using that app, if I can remember the name of it. I know that's probably...
Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah. I'll remember it as soon as this thing's over.
Of course. Right when we stop.
Yeah, but usually when I do that, I can tell the difference in my day because my reaction to things is I get this quarter of a second where if something doesn't go my way, I can either react in a good or a bad manner, and if I can extend that from half a second to 1/70th of a second, I'm having a good day.
Yeah, I absolutely love the self-awareness and that you have that consistency in your day and that you take it that serious. Like I so respect that because I don't do that. Like I'll be completely honest, I don't do that. And I just really, really can appreciate that you take it that serious, and the people that are in your life, that you will actually do these actions to make sure that you're in solution for your sobriety, and that your life is that important to you and the people around you that you're helping.
Well, I'm going to be honest, I'm very competitive. So the guys in my life, they do this, and I don't want to be able, at the end of the day, thine own self be true. I want to be able to be honest and be like, hey, yeah, I meditated longer than you. I called more guys than you.
Hey, you know what?
That's where
whatever works.
Deep down, that's where it comes.
It's competitive, but you're sticking with the winners in the right way. So I think it's great to be competitive in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But other than that, I think it's like I'm a big 12-step guy, and I agree. There's other ways to recover. I don't think there's just one way to get sober, but.
For you,
this one worked, and this is my 3rd round through the 12 steps, and I'm on my 3rd sponsor. My 2nd one, he moved to Las Vegas, and then my 1st one, first year, I got super self-conscious, and some guy in my sober living told me if I wasn't working the steps one way. I wouldn't stay sober, so I was like immediately, I gotta get rid of this guy. But you know, with you know, staying sober, I guess 4.5 years now, and I wouldn't say getting that time, but doing a lot more work since then. You know, you come to realize that there's not just one way to do this.
No, yeah, to each their own. I mean, we're all so unique and different, and we are connected by addiction, but we all are so unique, and our journeys are so different, and what works for one person might not for another, but I think we need to respect whatever works for whoever it is. So I think it's amazing that it works for you and that you're able to find the success that you do in it. Before we wrap up, what would be something you would say to someone out there that's struggling, doesn't know how to get the help, is isolating, is watching this, and they're, you know, a young guy that's really wanting to get sober but don't know the first step to take? If that was someone you were talking to right now, what would you say to them?
You know, the first thing I would say to them is raise your hand, and
at a meeting.
At a meeting,
anywhere.
Or anywhere, you know,
just
find somebody you trust, whether that's your mom, whether that's, you know, your teacher, or, you know, a therapist or a doctor if you have one of those, or just somebody you trust, and get honest with them. Tell them what's really going on in here, and don't be afraid of what's, you know, going to be the outcome of that, you know, because our mind's going to tell us so many different things as far as, you know, what's going to happen way down the road, when really we should be more worried about what's happening right now, presently.
Yes. So raise your hand, ask for help, lead from your heart, confide in somebody, and just take it one step at a time.
Absolutely.
And know that I was telling the clients today at the center that it's such a courageous thing to be able to ask for help. And
Absolutely.
I wish I had done it earlier, and I'm sure everybody out there that's in recovery would say the same thing. I wish I had done it sooner. So you're not alone. Raise your hand. My first sponsor always told me, hand up, you're alive, hand down, you're dead. You know, and it's true. We need to be open and talk about these things. So thank you for coming on today and talking about this with me. I think you're great. I think your story is very, very powerful. I love that you have the ability to stay connected with yourself in your recovery and the people's lives that you touch. So right on. Yay.
All right, absolutely.
All right, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.